you can start.
I can start now?
Yes.
Okay. So, good afternoon from here in Nigeria. It's good to be here this afternoon. Thank you very much for the invitation to be here. Such a wonderful privilege, such an invitation granting me the opportunity by the IIU team to share my knowledge on one of the most important topics of this time, which has to do with the participative management for organization effectiveness. I would like to share my slides at this time. Okay, so I'm Timilehin from Nigeria. I'd like to give a brief introduction about myself. I'm a diplomat, a climate change and waste management expert, an international speaker, an international trainer. I also focus on leadership development. I'm also a researcher, a consultant, and a writer. Thank you very much this afternoon. Such a very great privilege. And I believe that at the end of this class, at the end of this session, this would have learned about something very important that has to do with organization effectiveness in the world of business, in the world of organization management, and also in the world of participative management also. Okay. I could remember some couple of months back, I shared my knowledge here on effective team building, and I stressed on some important feature that has to do with effective team building also. So this is also one of the greatest strategies that can be used, particularly in every organization to craft out innovative strategies and approaches for productivity of every company, for productivity in every business environment. We won't be able to talk much today because the last time I spoke on effective team building, much has been said, and also this is another strategy which I deemed fit to share my knowledge about to learners so that we can have a full knowledge and full understanding about today's world. Technology has gone too far and wide. It has advanced, and it is very important that if organizations are to meet up with the trend of time, it is very important that they deploy so many strategies. But unfortunately, most organizations now do not fancy this concept of human capital development. That's what I'm actually saying. And, most organizations will not actually go far if they fail to deploy the human capital development technique. And, most organizations just feel they need to employ workers and then they give them their, their roles to perform, their duties to perform. Well, maybe the management distinct themselves, they position themselves, and they use a kind of autocratic and authoritative style of problem solving and decision making, and that has proven to be a failure. And in this current time, where there are a lot of businesses around, in this current dispensation of time, where businesses are producing the same products that they do, it is of course very important that organizations try as much as possible to engage the workers, to make workers participate in the decision-making process and also in the problem solving process, at least so that they can actually use the potentials of all these employees. Because, and of course, employees, regardless of their position in the organization, they have potential. Of course, definitely they have potential. And of course, it would not actually make sense when organizations are sidelining some set of individuals just because they perceive them as low in hierarchy and they fail to involve them in the decision-making process. So quickly, we need to look at this subject, participative management. Like I said before, participative management is basically a team building approach where you teach it could be a new team, it could be an existing team, it could be where you teach your employees the values and ethics of the organization so that they can match up with the current demand of time as a result of technological advancements. So quickly, let's look at participative management style. It's basically the involvement of employees in the decision-making process and also in the problem solving in the company, and as well where it will support um, employees' high autonomy and their own initiative also and creativity, because of course everyone has their inherent potential, and I believe that no potential is such that of a waste. Okay, so we will quickly look at this participative management style. Of course, everything is built on concept, and it is most important that we understand every basic concept uh, every um, every principle so that the right tactic and the right approach can be deployed so that the right solutions can be derived from the problem at hand. Okay, in today's business environment that changes very fast, there is more and more companies that are now realizing the importance of human resources. Like I said before, it is even very important that now that there are a lot of persons from different backgrounds, a lot of employees. It is even advisable for the human resource department uh, to check out each potential. And of course, you see most companies here, well, some companies do that, but most companies here, they do not carry out their monthly assessment on employees. They basically do not do that. And so many of them, that is why they fail to identify the potential, the inherent potential and capacity of their employees. And, and if you fail to identify the capacity of your employee, then how can you possibly mm, let them maximize their potential through the participative management style that we are talking about? And of course, it is to the advantage of these companies and it is to the benefit of these companies so that they can make more profit and so that they can gain competitive advantage in the market. So, like in the school of strategic management, we need to understand that for companies to maintain competitive advantage at all times of social performance, it is very, very important that you include them into the decision-making process. It is kind of a democratic kind of approach where on a broader scale, where you see every individual, it could be within a society, it could be within an organization, where you give them some level of privilege of equal participation. You know, everybody have a role to play even within an organization. Nobody is just useless within an organization. It could possibly be maybe just a personal assistant that we know, the 10 personal assistant that we use in Nigeria. So, and of course, trying to sideline people like that would not make a whole lot of sense because they have a lot and a lot to offer. Okay, so when we look at some level of commitment as one of the number one style that we need to deploy, um, there ought to be some level of commitment. And as a matter of fact, most companies, just like I said earlier on, um, when you try to sideline some sections or maybe some individuals who play key roles, as a matter of fact, every office in an organization play key role. And of course, every organization play key role. So no one should be left behind. So when you don't involve some certain individuals into the decision making and problem solving approaches or methods, um, they will feel less committed. And of course, when you don't carry them along into the day-to-day operation uh, of the organization, they will not feel committed to the organization visions and missions. And so when they feel sidelined, they feel relaxed. And it will not be good at all in that approach. So to effectively use this style that we've been talking about, there ought to be some level of commitment among employees and among workers. So, and also this will allow them to get more involved into the decision making, whereby they can contribute their quota to problem solving activities. And also, when we talk about the second aspect of mastery, autonomy, and meaningfulness, every individual has their area of mastery where they are very good at. It doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be, should I say, it is not really about the position now. It's about the content of that individual. They have inherent potential, just like I said. And also, um, it is the duty of the human resource department to get the best out of them. So when they get the best out of them, it gives them this motivation, to always get along into the organization activities also. So you give them some level of autonomy, some level of rights where they can have that avenue to express themselves. It could be via potential and ability and capacity. So when you give them that level of, it should not be a kind of a dictatorial system where you try to restrict them to some level whereby they will not be able to manifest their inherent potential to the fullest. So it is the duty of the human resource department to do that. And this will also add to the productivity of that company also. So when you give them some level of, when they already know their mastery, their area of mastery and their autonomy, it will give them some level of meaningfulness. It will give them some level of motivation and fulfillment where they would like to get more and more involved. It's not about restriction now. It is not about in the business environment, and it will be advisable also in the organizational setting to not to exercise some level of leadership ability. This particularly now is targeted towards the human resource department. There should be some level of leadership ability exercised by this human resources manager, not some level of, not managerial skill per se, just in quotes. There's a difference between a leader and a manager. And of course, most managers are dictatorial and they see every individual as persons, not just like an individual. They basically see them as machines where they can use, but that will not make a whole lot of sense at all to get the best out of the workers. You can basically not just see them as a machine, but you have to motivate them. You should be able to motivate. You should be able to inspire them towards the cause of the organization. Because when they feel being used, when they feel uh like maybe the organization does not have any concern about maybe their health life or maybe about uh their their career, So they develop some resentment and some level of attitude whereby they feel being used and they might not contribute in the decision-making process. They might pretend to contribute, but they might not. But they must be motivated. I mean, the human resource department should, at all time, aside from the assessment examinations that should be carried out. I believe there should be some level of one-on-one discussion between the person in charge and also the employee, where they can advise. It may be in a situation whereby the employee is having some personal issues. I am not saying that it is mandatory for the organization to solve the personal issues of the employee, like mandatory, but at least each of these managers should show some level of concerns, and if the organization can help, they can help. At least this will aid in the motivation of all these employees. So when we talk about the third section of it, when we talk about the self-management is very important. And of course, it is very important because if an individual who is going to contribute to the organization development does not know how to manage his or her potential, it will not add any meaningful results to the firm, to not have any contributions to the firm. But there's someone who should basically be able to help them achieve that. And that is why they say every employee will always that is why every employee gets into an organization, should I say, like someone who needs direction, like someone who needs to talk to them. It could be via training, it could be at a periodical interval where you organize seminars where you have to motivate them, or maybe you equip them with new skills. It is also very important, but most companies don't really care about that. And you cannot act outside your knowledge. So basically, before you can contribute to development, then you need to have some level of knowledge. So it's very important that organization puts this into consideration also. So on the third column, we can talk about engagement, meaningful engagement. There should be that level of autonomy, just as I have highlighted before. It should be that that level of right, where they should be given free time to express themselves and contribute meaningfully into the day-to-day operation of every company. Okay, so the competitiveness among organizations has greatly reduced, most importantly in this recent time, as a result of globalization and technological advancements. Directing companies in terms of research of strategies to remain active on the market. It is also very important. So with the high competitiveness, scenario dynamics kind of, and transformations to the business environment, and also new strategies become very, very necessary. Also conditioning the survival of an enterprise to its competitive capacity and economic growth, when it relates to its competitors. So under this all-round bias, strategic business and management explores various available resources that are effective, giving that companies are becoming true life organisms also, and more flexible and adaptable to change for greater business longevity. So we can look at the next slide, where I put up some recommendations that could help companies to achieve more results, that could help companies to compete with greater companies, where they can also make meaningful impact and make profits also. So there should be some level of improvements in the quality of human resources. This will particularly help them to increase productivity and overall efficiency of their activities. This is very important, just like I I stressed later before on the Department of the Human Resource. There ought to be some level of improvement because that is the powerhouse of every organization. If a human resource manager cannot self-manage him or herself, then how possibly can that human resource manager manage um every employee just below her? So definitely there have to be some self-management, self-realization, self um actualization also. So the human resource managing department, this is hiring and firing of workers, and also constant seminars, conferences, organization of seminars, conferences, employee appraisal, employee assessment. These are very, very important. So when that department is not carrying out its duty and effectively when it ought to be, then the company should expect some level of failure in some operation, some of their modus operandi. And also, I stressed on the second aspect where I spoke about the higher participation of employee in decision-making or any company activities leads to higher satisfaction at work and higher commitment and engagement. When employee perceive some level of participation, they make commitment towards the cause of the organization, and it gives them some level of fulfillment and satisfaction at work. And so this will enable them to always want to self-improve, self-improve and develop themselves just for the organization uh, to make giant strides on the global stage. And also, I made third recommendation also on empowering techniques into management education programs that will develop managers in involving employees into decision making and using of their potential more in the workplace. It is very important that one of the major principles that you can use to maximize your potential, that you can use to increase your capacity is basically education. Education, of course, your knowledge determines how far you go, and depends on the kind of philosophy that you set. So I will encourage every organization to create philosophy that will accommodate equal participation in the firm, regardless of the gender, regardless of the tribe or the background. There ought to be some, it is what companies call code of conduct or ethics. So if they can imbibe this participative technique where a boss should not basically position him or herself as a boss because it would not even help. The boss should position him or herself more like a leader of an organization. It should not be a kind of an authoritative kind of an approach where you use in governing. Okay, I would not use the word governing. Yeah, you use in coordinating your employees. It should be more kind of a democratic approach. There ought to be some level of flexibility within the organization, so they feel at home, give them some level of satisfaction, and it enables them to deploy more of their potentials. Potentials are dormant within man, and the more you continue to maximize, the more you begin to discover more of your potentials. So it is endless. So this signifies that potentials within us is endless. So I've come to the end of my presentation. Just like I said, we won't be taking much time because we discussed about building effective team building the last time, and I stressed on some points. And this participative management style is just a continuation of effective team building. So I would stop sharing my slides now. So I want to sincerely thank Dr. Ermina for giving me the opportunity to just share my knowledge. this concept, on this subject matter on participative management. It is very important that we imbibe this culture into our philosophy and day-to-day practices. At least this will give us more productivity and more profit to remain at the top level in the business world. And also, not just that alone, this will enable workers to maximize their potential and even discover some of their potentials even in the workplace. So thank you very much for giving me this time to share my knowledge on this session. I'm very grateful to the Higher Youth team, to the president, Dr. Pirish Pandit, for this grateful opportunity. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.